Our guest today, a former CFL general manager. He was also the CFL's coach of the year, Jim Barker. Now, a heck of an analyst. Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show. Coming up. Our guest today hails from Pasadena, California. He now calls Toronto home. He is a former assistant coach at San Francisco State, New Mexico State, University of Nevada. He was an offensive coordinator at Montreal, Toronto, Hamilton, and the Los Angeles Extreme, a head coach of the Toronto Argos and Calgary Stampeders, former CFL Coach of the Year, a general manager in Calgary and Toronto, winner of 5 Grey Cups, now a CFL analyst for TSN. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program, Jim Barker. Jim, great to have you here.
Well, that takes a lot of ink, just putting the places I've been fired from and moved around from. The only error
Yeah.
was I was never an offensive coordinator in Hamilton.
Oh, okay. You
Everything
were
else was exactly right.
okay. What was the gig in Hamilton? You were
I
an
was
assistant.
I actually went as a consultant to Orlando,
Okay.
trying to teach him how, he was going to be a head coach and a GM, and which I don't think you can do. But and
Yeah.
then June Jones left right before the season, so they asked me to help Tommy Condell with the offense. So I was just basically a grunt assistant coach, and
Okay.
it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
it was fun. We had a great year, and it was fun. But I was not the coordinator, so I don't want anybody calling in saying,
Okay.
"Joe,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
didn't have it right," or "Jim told you wrong."
No, that's perfect, Jim. Thank you so much. It was, but you certainly do have an impressive resume, and it started at a very young age. Tell us how you got into the coaching biz.
I actually started when I was in high school. I hurt my knee my sophomore year of high school. I hurt my knee, so I couldn't play basketball. So I started coaching basketball, and I'd been umpiring baseball, and I coached some baseball, uh, and then started coaching football after I graduated. I came back and played high school football, but I wasn't good enough. And when I came back, my knee was a problem. So I went into coaching, and I went 2 years to USC as an undergrad, and um, decided at that point that I was going to be a coach. I didn't want to major in business anymore. And my mother had a cow. She said, "Jim, you have to make a living. You can't make a living as doing the coaching you like to do." So, but I've been enamored with it with every sport. I was a college baseball coach for 8 years actually. Uh, I thought I wanted to be a major league umpire, and I'm probably still the youngest. At 19, I umpired a UCLA varsity game. Probably the youngest to ever do an NCAA college game behind the plate. So I was an umpire from the time I was about 14, had my own association with about 18 to 20, I'm sorry, 70 to 80 umpires that worked for me in the San Gabriel Valley down by Pasadena. And that was what I thought I was going to do. And then somebody told me, a good friend who was a sports writer actually said, "You know what? You can always go back and umpire, but if you go umpire now and then it doesn't work out, you don't like it, you don't like the travel, you don't like whatever, it's tough to go back to college. So go to college first, then go umpire if you want." And so that's what I did. I went to SC and did that, got my degree, and then went from there into coaching. I volunteered at a place called Occidental College, and then went to San Francisco State, where I got a chance. That's where I kind of got a chance. Mike Holmgren was on our staff. Then
Mm.
when Mike and I left, we got replaced by Andy Reid and Dirk Cutter. So it was a lot of great coaches going through there. And I got an opportunity to be the coordinator and got a chance to learn the game the way it's, at a pretty high level. Vic Rowan, our head coach, was known for putting guys out there. I had a lot of guys in Canada because he was very close with Cal Murphy. And Mike Kelly went through there, and a guy named Pal Satori. And there were just quite a few guys that went through San Francisco State. So that was kind of my first exposure to Canada. But I was coaching in the U.S., in the Western United States in college football. And then I was at a small college where you had to do two sports. So I was a head baseball coach for 8 years at Pomona College and at Occidental College. So, in addition to coaching football, so it's been a great career. I mean, I've never worked a day in my life. I would do this stuff for free, and fortunately, I've gotten fortunate enough to be paid for it.
Yeah, there's the old saying, right? Those who can do, and those who can't coach. But
Yeah,
you've
man,
done it.
that's pretty
You can
much me.
obviously, you obviously can make a pretty good gig at that. But I mean, the names you threw out there, Mike Holmgren and Andy Reid and Cal Murphy, and like you've learned from some of the best in the game that the
Mhm.
game's ever seen. Who would you say was probably the best mentor you ever had?
Well, without question, Don Matthews. Don Matthews taught me how to coach pro football, and he he was a genius. He took very complex concepts and ideas and made them simple. And he truly was a genius, and he, without question, was my biggest influence. And I won a couple Grey Cups as his offensive coordinator. He was a defensive coach, so being the offensive coordinator for him was fantastic. And everybody gives Tressman the credit for Anthony Calvillo, but Anthony Calvillo, his first year winning an MVP was with Don Matthews as his head coach. So Don took Ben Cahoon and moved him to a slot back, and then he went on to a Hall of Fame career. And he just did things that went unnoticed that were brilliant. And I would say probably 90% of them, I didn't agree with him when he did them. And always turned out right. And that's when you're around a genius, when he doesn't have to talk about it. He just says, this is what we're doing, and do it. And then, and you'd say, I don't think that. And then it works. And he was without question the best. And I also got a chance to work with Doug Flutie, probably the best player I've ever been around early in my career, my second year in the league. And I just learned so much about what it takes to be a great player, and what, as a coach, I can do to help that great player reach that potential of being a great player. Because it's not about yourself, it's about being a great player is about making the people around you better. I can tell you a story about, we were in Winnipeg and beating Winnipeg, the Bombers, by 40. And we're in the middle of the third quarter. Don says, Doug, I think that's enough. He said, no, I just need through the third quarter. I got to get Dwayne Demetrician a touchdown. And I got to get, there was one other a rookie receiver. And I can't remember. It might have been Andre Kerwin. I got to get him a touch. I got to get those guys touchdowns. And sure enough, our next two drives, boom, we go down. Dwayne Demetrician gets a touchdown. Uh, whoever it was, the other guy gets a touchdown. He said, "Okay, now I can come out." And he would tell me, because I was coaching the offensive line, and he would tell me, "Okay, we got a." If I said we got a bad mismatch here, when he's one on one, we're going to have problems. He goes, "If that guy makes the play, then that's on me." And the guy never did. I mean, offensive linemen had their best year because they can say they never gave up a sack. And he was brilliant. He just did things that the normal person can't do. We were doing testing my first year there. We're testing the new guys who came in, and Doug was there early as a quarterback, and we're doing short shuttles. And if you can break 4.0 in the short shuttle, our fastest time was 3.95. He walks up and says, "Hey, what do I have to beat to be better than all these guys?" And I said, "Well, the fastest time so far is 3.95, but if you're right around 4, that's unbelievable." And he rips off at 3.87. I mean, just that's just the way he was. He bought a ping pong table for the locker room. And I said, "Doug,
Uh
man, that was so awesome for you to, we were in trailers, and it wasn't a great facility, and out at University of Toronto, Mississauga." And I said, "That's really great for you to get these guys a ping pong table." He goes, "I didn't do it for them." He goes, "I'm so tired of listening to their crap about how good players they are in ping pong. I needed to shut their asses up."
huh.
And that was Doug Flutie. That was being around greatness, and I was just blessed to get a chance to do that.
Yeah, it's I remember another receiver that he had, the Canadian Dave Sapunches. and it's kind of cool because Dave actually worked with us at CFTO TV, CTV Toronto at one
Mhm.
time, and Dave was a great guy, and he went on to have a really good, nice career in Calgary, and
He was
having
one of
Doug
the
Flutie
owners
throwing things.
when I went to Calgary. He was one of the owners,
Was he an
so I
owner
got to
at
know
that time?
Dave.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
back when Berzani and them bought the team, Dave was
Right.
one of the guys who was involved in buying the team. And yeah, like I say, Sapundis was fantastic, and he would he would sit and talk about Flutie also because the stories just don't end.
Hmm. Well, you started getting some head coaching gigs. Your first one was with the Argos in 1999. Tell us about that first head coaching gig for you.
Well, I'd been in the league. I didn't come. I came in the league in '96 in Montreal. I had no idea. I'd never been in. Then in '97 and '98, I'm 2 years with Don. Man, look at that! Holy
Yeah,
cow! Where'd
yeah.
you dig these? Where'd you dig these up? Um, in '97, '98, I was coaching the offensive line and the co-offensive coordinator with John Jenkins. And then Don went to Edmonton, and Bob Nicholson hired me as the head coach. And I knew it was only going to be a 1 year thing, and they were selling the team. So, in fact, I never got fired as the head coach from that first job. I just went in the wintertime. I went in to go to the office in the trailer, and the key didn't work anymore. So I called the league office. I said, my key doesn't work. And they said, oh, yeah, the deal finalized last weekend, and you're not part of the deal. So, it was, which I knew that was coming, but it was just, I never did. Nobody came in and said, you're fired. We're going to move on. It was like, your key doesn't work. So I guess there's no going to work anymore.
Right. There's you had a couple of those interesting coaching situations. Another
Oh, yeah.
one. Well, first, okay, let's talk about the XFL because before you came back to the CFL, you had a stint in the XFL with the LA franchise, the
Hmm.
LA Extreme, which resulted in a championship. But there you are, right there, Jim Barker on the
Yeah.
sidelines.
Wow. Wearing a hat. I never
What?
wore a hat. That's amazing. I'm wearing a
Yeah,
hat.
yeah,
That
just
was
for that one.
yeah,
It was
might
probably
have
a
been right.
championship hat, right?
That was a
Yeah, there
great
was.
that was a absolute. Oh, that was a championship hat. Okay, I
That's
did
right.
put it on
There you
that.
go. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
Tommy
yeah.
Maddox, that's Tommy.
Right.
He was kind of the flagship player in the league in the first year, and they didn't know what they wanted to be. Vince McMahon he wanted to be like wrestling,
Yep.
but about week 3, they went to Tommy, and Tommy was going to be the featured player in the league, and they went to him about, what do you think about maybe we'll hook you up and have you having an affair with a cheerleader, and he goes, I got kids in school, I'm not doing that
Yeah.
stuff. And so they kind of had to switch gears, and they couldn't go as much down because Jesse Ventura was one of the announcers, and they were trying to create some of the wrestling drama and some of the things that
Right.
aren't true. And the problem was these guys, they weren't used to it, and so it went to being just a football league the second half of the season. And we were fortunate. We had a fantastic team. Al Luganbill, our head coach, was a genius in personnel. Still does personnel, I think. And his son Tommy is on ESPN as the high school guru in the country. Tommy was our quarterback coach, Luganbill, and it was one of those things. It was just a fantastic. That league had so many things that I always felt would help the CFL. That there was cost certainty. One of the big problems in the
Mm.
CFL is you got 8 different owners, 9 different owners, all trying to win championships. And if it means we've got to go over the cap, then we'll do that. Or if you have a cap, sometimes, like
Hmm.
right now, there's a cap, but they have this promo money that could be as high as you want it to be. So that, they're going to have to do something because they can't control themselves. But in the XFL, every player made $45,000. Every player in the league.
Mm.
Kickers made 40,000, 5,000 less, and quarterbacks made 50,000, 5,000 more. And
Wow.
uh, and then the team that won got a $2,500 win bonus. So all the winning teams, every player got a $2,500 bonus that week. So our guys ended up making around 100,000 for the year. And then the championship game was $1 million winner take all. If you didn't win, you didn't get anything. It was $1 million winner take all. And we split the $1 million. It came out to like 29,000 for each, because everybody got it. Every player, every coach, the people in the front office. So everybody got $29,000 for winning the championship. And Vince McMahon said, these rings are going to just put the NFL to shame. And I got it. In fact, I got it right here. You got to see this.
Yeah, let's see this. Yeah.
You got to see this. This is it.
Okay.
Right here. It is it's like it's out of a Cracker Jack box. In comparison to the XFL rings, this one's kind of like it's out of a Cracker Jack box. So, I rarely ever show it, but how do I? Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's it.
Way, yeah, there we go.
The original XFL champion. XFL championship, and there is no more XFL, so it won't happen again. So, yeah, that's I'm pretty proud of it, even though it's, like I said, it's not quite what Vince McMahon said it would be, but it was a great league. Said, I was blessed to be a part of it.
Yeah, producer Vic said his high school rings were more impressive, but you know what? that is a rare ring. Like, there aren't many of them around, so
no,
it does have value in that way. So, what was it that took the XFL down? What was it? What was the reason for their demise?
It was? Yeah, what it was, Joe, was the wrestling was everything for Vince McMahon, and in the TV negotiations, they were being broadcast. We were being broadcast by 2 or 3 different stations, and one of the stations brought wrestling up and said, "Well, if we're going to do this, we're going to get this discount on." And as soon as wrestling got into his TV negotiations, he goes, "I'll just drop this league," and he did. He dropped the league. At the beginning of the week, they had league meetings, and at the beginning of the week, Coach Luganbill told me, he said, "Jim, get ready, because they're talking about expanding by 2 teams." And we had won the championship. I was the offensive coordinator. There was a chance, there was a chance I was going to be the new head coach in Philadelphia. So at the end of the week, he calls and he says, "Are you sitting down?" And I think I'm going to be the head coach in Philadelphia. And I said, "Yeah, I'm sitting down, coach. What do you got?" And he said, "Well, they dropped the league." And I said, "What? How could they drop the league? They promised us 3 years." And he said, "Nope, he dropped the league, and it had to do with the television." And that was that. So it was, they were going to pay us for 1 more month. But we had coaches who went across the country. They moved their families. We were in LA. Jim Hillis, who was in the CFL for a while, he moved his family from Florida. And, you can't just let coaches go in May. They can't find jobs. There's no jobs in May. You don't get jobs until December. So I had a kid who had played for me at Occidental, a labor lawyer, and he kind of took it on. And on behalf of all the assistant coaches, we put together a deal. And actually, just before it was going to come out in the USA Today, how he had ruined the lives of, a bunch of people were affected by it. And they settled with it and gave us a full year of salary and benefits. So we had 1 year to find a job. So we went from May to May, and then, which was fair. And, and then I was fortunate where Don went to Montreal and asked me if I'd come up as his offensive coordinator. And that was 2002. And we won the Grey Cup with Anthony's first year. Actually, the first year he had been in shotgun. He had done most everything from under center. And, Don felt he had been playing behind Tracy Ham. And Don felt it was time that he was going to be the guy. And, like I said, we were fortunate enough to go in and win the Grey Cup. So I'm thinking, I got Tommy Maddox winning the XFL championship, the MVP. I'm thinking I'm a quarterback genius, and I can coach anybody. And then I go and I'm quarterback coach and coordinator in Montreal. We win the championship. So I think I'm going to go where Wally Buono can't do it, because the owner bought the team so his kid could play quarterback. which I didn't exactly understand the insides and outs of it, but I thought I can deal with this. I mean that's me. I'm a quarterback guy, and as long as he tells me I don't have to play as his guy, and so I went and took this job in Calgary, which was just one of the worst moves I could have ever made. But I wanted to be a head coach again, and uh, it was yeah, it was a disaster. To put it bluntly, it was. Our general manager was a guy named Fred Fateri, who had never been in round football, and he was the general manager, and he had more shoes. He was the best dressed on the sideline, but
uh-huh.
he had no concept of anything, and it was just a daily gong show. I mean, I'd have players coming out with, they'd have Fateri on their shirt with an X through it, and I'd have to get them to take it off so the media wouldn't. It was a daily gong show. So at the end of the year, actually, his son Kevin, Dave Dickinson wanted to come back to Calgary back then, and we had a deal. Stan Schwartz and I had a deal behind the scene done that if we would just give him a normal quarterback salary, we could get some extra things for him, and he was going to come back to Calgary. Well, they cut him in. The owner said he was doing the negotiation on the quarterback, and basically cut him in half. And Dave obviously went back to BC, and that was that. So we had Marcus Crandall was our quarterback, and Marcus was doing a good job. I mean, ended up getting hurt in the second game, and my greatest coaching win ever as a head coach probably was with Kevin Federick was the quarterback, and we beat Ottawa. I'll never forget it. It was, Kevin was left-handed. He had a problem with he would go the wrong way quite a bit, and I would get yelled at for it. And he just, his right from his left, and he had some issues with some of those kinds of things, and but I can't believe you guys have Kevin Federick film. You talk about organization. If this is Vic's doing, this is as good a production as I've been on a lot of shows, and there's Saladin McCullough, and we had Lawrence Phillips and Saladin McCullough, and like I say, it was a great experience. We almost won our first game where Marcus Crandall was our quarterback. We're playing Montreal, where I was the year before. They had won the Grey Cup. We're playing them in Calgary, and we end up with the ball in overtime on the 1.5 yard line. And instead of kicking to tie it, to send it to another overtime, I went for it, didn't get it. A guy named Joe Sports, Colin Smith is his real name, but he went by Joe Sports, and he and I had a radio show together back in or later in 2004. He said the worst call he's ever seen in his life. And, I was low. It just was the right. I thought it was the right thing to do. I come back, and my kids are back in my office waiting for me, and I'm lower than whale shit, and I walk in and expect my kids to say, "Hey, don't worry about it, Dad. That was a gutty thing, and you guys played." No, my youngest daughter Holly, who's now a pit boss at the Bellagio, she goes, "Dad, what were you thinking?" it's like, oh my goodness, is this Calgary thing off to a bad start? So then the next week we're up 17-0 in game 2 at Edmonton, and Marcus Crandall, it looks like he was shot from up above. He goes down with a hamstring, and that started the rotation of quarterbacks. We went through 5 or 6 quarterbacks, and that was part of the fun of it. But at the end of the year, Mr. Federick went to Europe, and I cut his son while he was gone. So 2 days before Christmas, he fired me, and my mom was on her way down for Christmas with the kids, or on her way up from California, and for Christmas with the kids. And while she was in the air, I got fired. So,
well, that was
it's the CFL at its finest. I just, it's why I'm still in this league. I love it. I owe so much to it. I owe so much to the fans. Like now, I'm not with a team, so I can tell a lot of these stories.
Right.
I can come
Oh, that's
out
so awesome.
and bring these
Yeah.
things out, which are great. They're great stories for the CFL.
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of crazy things in the CFL, and there's the Gleibermans, and then of course there was Braley owning two teams at once, and all kinds of other stuff going on, and of course the Federic show in Calgary, which you were a part of. But Matt, you managed to land on your feet after that, and get another coaching stint with the Argos in 2010. And we have video from that announcement where you were asked, where you were brought back to coach the Argos, and you talked about being at the right time to return to the sidelines. And we talked about the video.
Well,
Yeah, it's Paul
one of the
Pasco's our
thing
video guy. He's amazing. Yeah, yeah.
one of the things you should know is that in 2000, I stayed in Calgary after I got fired in 2003. I was only there 1 year. Then Matt Dunnigan, Matt's a good friend now, and he came in and became the coach in 2004. And I stayed in town because my daughter was getting some treatment and things like that, and we needed to be in Calgary. And at the end of 2004, that's when Sapungis and Frizani, Ted Hellard, they bought the Stampeders for the city. And I mean, it was kind of like Edmonton now. There was nobody going to the games. We're down to
Mm,
3,500, 4,000 people at the games.
wow.
And Frizani comes up to me and gives me a wad of bills and says, "Can you be the GM?" And I said, "Absolutely." And I had never done it. I had no clue what I was doing. I said, "Absolutely, I could do that." So he goes, "Well, take this, go down and find us some players." So I basically I was the GM. I didn't have any assistants. I did it all myself for 2 years. Then I hired Brendan Mahoney, who helped with Canadian scouting. Then I hired John Murphy from the U.S., who worked in, kind of was a bird dog down there. Because I had met some people, but I went out. It's a big difference between what's going on now between guys that are coach and GM and what I did, because I basically didn't. All I was a GM. I was a GM 2005, 6, and 7, and Tom Higgins was our head coach. But all I
Hmm.
did was GMing, doing contracts, the salary cap. Ted Heller taught me about the business side. It was a great situation. But when I became a GM, I had done every job that you have to do in the personnel office. I had done scouting at all the NFL camps. I'd gone to all the All-Star games. I went out and met a lot of the people down in the U.S. I did all those things myself. Where now, Dave Dickinson is a GM, but he hasn't been down scouting. And I mean, I'm sure
Hmm.
he goes to the combine and things, but in terms of the intense scouting that goes on, hasn't done that, or written reports, or those kinds of things. I learned it a little different. Then we hired Huff in 2008. So we went from, in 2005, our first guy we signed was Henry Burris. And then 2008, Huff comes and he wants to be the head coach and GM. And I didn't care about titles. It really didn't matter to me.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
became the senior vice president. In fact, on the Grey Cup, we won the Grey Cup that first year. Because he hadn't been up here. He had been down in the Arena League, and he didn't know a lot of coaches. So I brought Chris Jones over, or suggested Chris
Hmm.
Jones to him. John Huff hired everybody. He hired the ones he wanted, but I brought the names up to him and things. And then built a good ball club, and we won the Grey Cup that year in 2008. So if you look at the Grey Cup, the only people with names on it are presidents, general managers, and head coaches. And there's one senior vice president, and that's me from Calgary, because they voted that I deserved to be on the Grey Cup as the senior vice president because I had done all the stuff. So I'm kind of proud of that. It's one of those little known facts about the Grey Cup that nobody knows, but you're fans now, Joe.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, obviously, you impressed a lot of people with your work ethic and the job you did. So, congratulations and kudos on that. So, what made you want to get back into coaching then in 2010 with the Argos?
I was helping Scott Milanovich get that job. That was what I was helping him get the job. And Bob Nicholson was the president, a really close friend of mine. Uh, from back, he's the one who hired me in '99, and I was helping Scott, and they were going through the negotiation, and in negotiation, they basically only wanted to give him a 2-year contract, and he wanted 3 years. So he basically pulled out, went back to Montreal. So Bob called me and said, Jim, what would it take to get you to come back and coach? And I said, well, I don't know if I can do both, but I want to try. So I went back because it was kind of late. It was almost February. And I went back as the coach and the GM. Well, first year, I didn't take the title of GM because Adam Rita was still there, and I felt out of respect to him. He needed to be the GM in title, but I had the power of the GM, and we worked very well together. I have a lot of respect for Adam and the kind of man he is, and that kind of thing. So Adam was technically the GM, but I was basically grooming myself to be the head coach and GM because Adam his contract was up and he was going to leave in 2011. And in that first year, I won the coach of the year, and we kind of changed the mentality, but we weren't good enough to get Grey Cup wise, and we needed to get a quarterback. And we were fortunate enough that I had a feeling Ricky Ray was going to come available, and I knew that Eric Tillman loved Stephen Giles. So, we ended up playing Stephen Giles the last half of 2011. And my plan, at the end of, by the middle of 2011, I said, I cannot be the best GM I can be and the best head coach. I can't do that. I can't. But I wanted to be the GM. So I brought Scott Milanovich in that following year in 2012, and we won the Grey Cup that first year in 2012. We were able to get Ricky in a trade with Edmonton, and won the Grey Cup in 12. Our building burned down. Like I said, that was when Mr. Braley owned the two teams, and again, it's all part of the CFL experience. Dontrell Inman, who ended up playing 6 years in the NFL after playing for us. And again, this was the Grey Cup game, the 100th Grey Cup, and just exciting time. Scott did a great job as a first-year head coach. He had played for me in the XFL, and then I brought him up here to Calgary, and he played, and then he coached, and so he was the right guy for us. And wow, that brings back some memories. But I just didn't feel like you could do both, so I became just the GM, and we were hanging around the top. We won it, I think, in 13, and then finished second in 14. I can't even remember the exact thing. Then in 16, Ricky got hurt, and we were hosting the Grey Cup again after having it in 12. We had it again as part of the deal that Mr. Braley got, was to have the Grey Cup, and he wanted badly for us to be in it again because they made a ton of money in that 100th when we not only were in it but won it, and we wanted us bad. So we made some trades and did some deals and tried to get the team right, and some of they don't always work out. They don't always turn into Ricky Ray. So when Ricky got hurt, we made a trade for Drew Willie, and he wasn't the right guy. But that's the way it is in this business. So I ended up at the end of at the beginning of 2017, I was out on the road, and the first year of a 3-year deal that they had just signed Babcock, the hockey coach. They had just signed, the Maple Leafs had just signed him for like $60 million. And I asked for more than I probably should have, but it was way more than I have. And they must have looked at it and laughed that they signed it off. And so I was in the first year of a 3-year deal. And, the president decided I was difficult to work with. And so they fired me. And, that was that. And it was an end of a great run. Pinball called me to come back in 2022. I worked in 2021 in TSN. I went to Hamilton. I did TSN in 18, Hamilton in 19, and then we had the COVID year. And then in 21, I went back to TSN, and then Pinball called me to go to Toronto He had Alex Russell, a bright young guy. He's going to be one of the next. One of the things I'm most proud of is we've had guys come through Toronto in that period from when I became the GM up through now. Guys, Vince Magri just signed with the Buffalo Bills. He's now a pro scout with the Buffalo Bills. But my first guy was Chris Rossetti back in 2012. He was like an intern for us, evolved into becoming a full-time scout, and taught him the things you do, and took him out on the road. And he met a lot of people, ended up getting hired by the Dolphins. He's now second in command with the Giants and their pro personnel. So he's with the New York Giants. The guy that replaced him, Curtis Ruckabina, another young Canadian, no experience, from Guelph, who came in, did a great job. 3 years, I think he was with the Bills. And so we have one with the Giants, we have two with the Bills, and then Matt Houston, who was he would come over every summer from Western. He was still a student at Western, so he didn't help us as much during the school year, but all summer he was with us for 4 years, and he just got hired by the Jets. So I'm really proud of 4 Canadian guys that are now in the NFL that have been, they've learned the ropes, they understand how to do it, and like I say, they're all very, very bright, hardworking guys. And it's probably the thing in this league I'm most proud of is those guys moving forward. It's exciting to watch for me.
A lot of people have excelled under Jim Barker, and and players as well. Can you think of a reclamation project that you had specifically, that some player who other teams had given up on, and really kind of were sort of towards the end of their career, but
Probably,
it seemed like their
yeah.
career's just about over? Yeah.
The one that comes to mind first was Sean Lemon, because Saskatchewan had given up on him, and he came in, and I don't know, he just kind of had a fire lit under him playing, and he kind of reclaimed his career. I think that was in 16. Uh, we had the quarterback thing going back in 2013. Jarius was our quarterback in 12, the year we won the Grey Cup, Jarius Jackson. And then our 3 would alternate each week between Caleros and Trevor Harris. Then the next year, Caleros and Harris battled for 2, and one would be 2 and one would be 3. And but they both dressed and learned how to play, and obviously they've moved on. And then Cody Fajardo came in 16, and again, kind of learned the ropes here. So the development the development of quarterbacks, and being able to find those guys. Caleros, I was just watching a game, and he was playing at Cincinnati, and just he was Flutie like he was 60-1 in high school. And
Wow.
to me, winning is so important, and that's what he did. Trevor Harris was at Edinburgh. In high school, had been successful. He just was a very different kind of guy than Caleros. Cody, he was a guy that Chris Alt, I coached at Nevada, Reno, University of Nevada. I was his passing game coordinator for Chris, and he called me and said, "Hey, listen, I got this quarterback. I think he's great for the CFL because he can really run. I know in that big field, he goes, he's not the best passer, but all he does is win games." He had gone to Modern Day and or Servite, one of the two, down in LA, and had won in high school big there, and then won big at Nevada. Again, that to me is one of the things that's most important when you go out to find quarterbacks, is finding guys who know how to win. So yeah, so that it was probably another great story in 2012. Probably the number one guy that contributed to that. I mean, we had to get rid of Corey Boyd who was a star, and everybody, people were wearing Boyd, and I took a lot of abuse, but we changed him out and then replaced him with Chad Cackert. But probably the one guy who contributed to the most of that win was Adriano Belli, who had played for
Oh,
me back in 2010 and then retired. And we just needed, I don't know if you know Adriano, but he
Oh
still to
yeah.
this day is he walks in a room and he's the closest thing to pinball in a football player as I've been around. Now pinball is on a different level. When he walks in a room, it's cool to be a CFL fan. It's cool to be an Argo fan. Uh, he's rare that way. Adriano's very similar, and Adriano came in and he said we brought him in September, and I said, listen, we just need these last few games. We need you to bring some pop into our locker room. And he says, well, the only thing I gotta tell you is in the Grey Cup game, I'm getting kicked out in the fourth quarter. And I said, you know what? You get us to the fourth quarter of the Grey Cup, I'll live with that. And I'll be damned if he did not get kicked out in the fourth quarter of that Grey Cup game.
Okay, what for? I can't remember recall that. What
Um,
for?
I think he kind of twisted a guy's knee, or I
Okay.
don't even want to. I don't ask him because usually you don't want. It's all those things you hear about
Right.
that you just yeah. So it's
Yeah.
Belly's he's a different, just a different. Like I say, I've never met anybody like him. He was in the XFL. He was with the Las Vegas team. But I didn't really know him then. But I got to know him when he played for us in 2010, and he had as much to do, if not more, than any other player, including Ricky Ray, on that Grey Cup team, because he brought that team together, and it was fun to go to work. And when you have guys in your locker room that make it fun to be at work, that's that's everything. And in the CFL, that's everything, because they a lot of they play for the love of it. And
Right.
so yeah, I would say Adriano was one that I was so crucial that people don't really understand how great he was as a player.
Yeah, I remember, and the fact that he was Canadian, the fact that he got it done, and a local guy, and the kissing bandit, and he loved everybody, and he
Yeah.
was always, for sure, a great guy to be around, no doubt about it. Loved Adriano. So, tell us about making the transition from, coach, GM to television analyst.
Well, I'm good friends with Paul Graham, and we had talked about it years ago, and that he thought I might be good at it. Uh, and so I did it a little bit in 17, and but it's tough when you're younger, if you don't commit to that full time. And that's if
Mm,
that was just what I was going to do, but I wasn't ready to give up coaching and GMing and things like that at that time. So now it's a lot easier for me to do it. So to me it's great because I get to do things like this, and I get to
mhm,
tell stories on the air that and give perspectives. I mean, the panel is fantastic, and they brought Enoch in this year, and he's recently been a player, and he's able to give those stories. And Milt was a great player, and Davis Sanchez was the best Canadian defensive back I ever coached. And how he's not in the Hall of Fame because he played corner his entire career. No other Canadian has done that, and done it at a very high level. But those guys do their thing, but the perspective I bring is just different because I see players as a general manager and as a coach, and I see what coaches are doing, and I try to bring something different to the broadcast, and something that the fans may not have thought about, or that type of thing. And I enjoy doing that. I enjoy being able to draw. I mean, I've been blessed with the greatest career anybody could ever ask for. I mean, I've been here. I've become a Canadian citizen. I've been here since 1990. Actually, 94 was my first year as a guest coach, and pretty much every year except for the XFL year. And I'm just blessed, and I want to give I want to give that back. I want to give that to the people, and and let them um, enjoy some of the old stories. I got a chance to speak to CFL alumni group, and there was fans and things like that, and it was just fun to be able to do exactly what we're doing, sit here and tell stories, and because it is a little different. The path that I've taken is different than the other people that are on the panel. So again, it's something I love doing. As long as they want me here, I'll be there. Like I say, Enoch's got getting a lot of they're trying to get him acclimated, and I appreciate that. And I'm anxious to hopefully get back on. So I'm on this week. I'm on Friday and Saturday, and then on the week after that. So I'm on for the next couple of weeks, and but I love it. It's my opportunity to really give back, and for me, it's all about entertainment, and it's all about getting people to understand this is the greatest three down football league in the world. I mean, we're watching the greatest three down football in the world. And I wish that, when the commissioner is doing some of these things, that they get to a point that they get some of these European teams playing three down football. It makes a lot more sense because of field size, because all the fields there are soccer fields. And you can play 65 yards wide. It's what a soccer field is. It's the same as our field. It's much more tied in to what they do in Australia with rugby and that type of thing. So we're much closer to that. Our game came first, and I think that's what I call this our game, because I do consider myself I'm a Canadian football guy, and our game came first. And it's like when things happen in the NFL, they're not new. They've been happening up here. A lot of the RPO stuff was all stuff that's happened up here. The old Bear defense. That stuff started up here. I mean, Don Matthews and Rich Ellerson were doing that in Edmonton way back when. And so, like I say, it's really interesting to hear people say, well, the NFL does it this way, and so we should. Well, we don't do what the NFL does. They do what we do.
Yeah.
And if we would just embrace our game for what it is, which is the greatest in the world. It's a different kind of athlete. It's much more a spatial game. You can actually see things developing way more than you can in the American game. I mean, the American game, again, that's what I grew up on, and I spent 20 years coaching college football down there. But it's just different. It's just a different deal. The four downs and the way they do things. I mean, principles are the same. They're still the same principles of run defense to be sound. There's same principles in pass coverage. I mean, I'll give you a great example. Bill Walsh. I was when I was at San Francisco State. Bill Walsh and had Joe Montana as a rookie. And we used to go and get to sit in those meetings. And he would take and do tests with safeties. He had Ronnie Lott and the guy with the longer neck. I can't remember his. No, I can't remember his number 36. Anyway, he would put them on each hash mark. And if Montana threw the ball 18 to 22 yards on a sideline, the safeties couldn't make a play on a ball down the middle and make the play on that. 18 to 22 yards. If Montana's ball went 24 yards, they could go over and make the play on it because it's in the air too long. Well, you know what? I tried that up here, and 18 to 22 is very close to what you get in the three deep coverage on a 65-yard wide field. And that's the seams you see and things like that. If you watch them, they're going to be thrown in that 18 to 22-yard area. So it's very similar to Bill Walsh's 18 to 22. It's just the wider field. Now you can do it against 3D coverage. So, things like that I just find fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, you talked
get me
about
going off on tangents.
Yeah, no,
there, Joe.
that's okay. That's good. You talked about the TSN panel. It's fantastic, and the guys are great. And Milt and Dunnigan, all those guys they have a lot of fun. And Enoch, as you mentioned, some other good news from the CFL this year with the news that CTV is going to be having Saturday games. What would you think about that news?
Well, that's exciting. I think it's I remember the days when I came up here, they had their own broadcasters. So they would get a game. That's not happening. They're taking the TSN broadcast. And
Right.
so it's not changing any of but I remember here listening to Chris Walby and listening to the way they broadcast the game as opposed to TSN, and I thought it was really unique, and I kind of miss it, but it's exciting that CTV is going to be back involved. They're going to move all the Saturday games to 3 o'clock in the fall, and they'll be on TSN and CTV, so it's pretty exciting.
Do you feel like the league is in pretty good shape?
You know what? Ownership makes the league, and when the league's gone through issues, it's been ownership. When my first year in the league, Montreal, the owner, Dr. Gelfond, one of the wealthiest guys in the year, just didn't want to do it anymore. So we just stopped getting paid. And that was kind of the way it was for a while when they went through the whole U.S. expansion and things.
Mm-hmm.
But you look around the league now at the ownership with Amar Doman and what he's doing. MLSE is taking care of the Argos. Bob Young and is just done a fantastic job with Hamilton. You have the new owner, and I can't pronounce his name. You probably can, and from Montreal, who owns Videotron. We just have fantastic ownership now. Saskatchewan, Winnipeg, community owned. I think Edmonton's going to get a new owner. So we have great ownership. When you have great ownership, you're going to have a great league because they're doing things the right way. And it's as strong a league as it's been since I've seen it. I know that there's a hard push to get that 10th team. We thought it would be Halifax, and it just may not happen for Halifax because of getting land and things for a stadium and all those kinds of things. So, I think as strong a league as it's been since I've been up here, and that's all due to ownership.
That's it's Pierre Carl Pelado is the new Montreal
That's it.
Alouettes owner.
That's it.
So yeah, I mean, I think expansion is kind of inevitable, is it not? It's got to happen. I mean, they play out in those East Coast games and they draw great crowds and there seems to be tons of support and it really it seems to me it's a no brainer, but it's getting
Yeah,
more
I don't
people
know
to pay
where.
attention.
I'm not sure where it'll be, but they'll have expansion somewhere because they do need that 10th team to balance the league,
Mhm,
and it'll
mhm.
balance the schedule and all those types of things. So, where it's going to be, that's a tough one to know. There's talk of Quebec City. I've heard stuff about Windsor and they're just they're doing the game in Vancouver on Vancouver Island this year. So who knows? I agree with you. I think that it is going to happen. I think that expansion will happen. I think that having that 10th team is important. And I think the popularity of the league is just growing. It's just, like I say, there's teams have trouble. Edmonton's in trouble right now. But Calgary, I
Right,
saw
right.
Calgary in bad trouble. They got bought by a local owners. When they were bought by 10 local Calgary people, it became Calgary's team again.
Right.
That's what needs to happen in Edmonton. They just don't feel like it's their team anymore. And that's the impression I get. It reminds me so much of Calgary back in those early 2000 when Federic owned it. So I know that that's going well in terms of finding an owner. But if they get the proper person in there that understands bringing that city and team together is what the key is, Edmonton will take off again because they want to be CFL fans. They just do, and it's such a great league. I mean, we've had 2 weeks of games, and I mean, you got the Saskatchewan Roughriders 2-0, could easily be 0-2, but you know what? They're 2-0. They're on top of the world right now, and how great is that? It's just the way they've won their games. It's not great for the teams that they beat, but
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
what? It's what makes the CFL the CFL.
Well, that was unbelievable. That win over Hamilton was, well, what they were down. What, I
Wow.
think it was 13 points with a minute and a half to go, or some ridiculous thing like that.
Yep.
And they ended up winning the game in regulation, no doubt. Okay, so the Argos. How do you think they're the Chad Kelly thing? What are your thoughts? It's the biggest suspension in CFL history, and here's a guy. I think you've helped bring Kelly into the Argos, if I'm not mistaken. And is this something that the Argos can overcome?
Oh, I think they can, and I think the young kid's doing a good job. And I think that Chad is, again, the way the whole thing happened um with the
Therapist.
suspension, and
Yeah. Mhm.
we basically we were told he violated the gender-based policy, and that's it. We weren't told what he did. What There was no more discussion. And you know what? And Chad, as from everything I understand, is basically just doing the things that the league wants him to do. So you think about it, they'll get this Duke's kid 9 games of experience, and then they're going to get last year's best player in the league back. Now, how can that hurt you? I mean, it can't hurt you. I think the Argos are. Ryan Dinwiddie is one of the brightest young coaches in the
Mm.
league. I love what they do formation wise. Their offensive line is second to none. Their defensive line, I think, improved this year. You think you lose Hendricks and Barlow to Hamilton, that it's going to affect you. Well, they had Serezna, and then Jared Brinkman, who came in 22 when I was there, and had last year to develop, and now he's showing what he can do. But you put him inside with Serezna, that's a force. And then Flo is the best outside pass rusher, Flo Rumilade, and then Wynton McManus, the best linebacker in the league. And I was worried about the defense with the new coordinator thing. Kevin Iben and Will Fields, they're to be patted on the back. Both guys played for me, Will in Calgary and Kevin in Toronto, very bright guys. And I thought what they did in that first game to Vernon Adams in the second half
Mm.
was brilliant. I thought it was brilliant. I thought their plan, the way they approached it, they kind of stayed off in the first half and let it develop. And then the second half, they went out and went after him, and they got to him. I think they sacked him 5 times in the second half. And that a lot of that is coaching. And when you have good players and you have coaching that's like that, you're going to win some games. So the Argos are going to hang around, and then they're going to get last year's best player in the league back. And
Mhm.
again, he's nobody can deny the things that guy has done, and he's got a big black mark on him. And until he wins a playoff game, everybody's going to say doesn't matter, because when the playoffs come, what's he going to do? Because he
Mhm.
he laid an egg. It was
Mhm.
it was
Yeah.
one of the worst playoff performances I can remember. And from a
Mhm.
guy who was, like I say, he was the MVP in the league, and he did some miraculous things. He did things that allowed that defense to make some mistakes, because they would always come back and score. So I think they're a team that's going to be reckoned with. I think Montreal right now is the best team in the league. Uh, they're solid on both sides of the ball. Noel Thorpe, who was with me that first year in Montreal as a DB coach, he's just phenomenal. And as a defensive coordinator, they're going to always be close. And then Cody, he's not. They don't turn the ball over. They're going to always be in ball games. And Walter Fletcher showed some breakaway speed. I was a little worried about losing
Mhm.
Stanback, not having that durable runner. But if Walter Fletcher can play 18 games, that will prove me wrong, and they're going to be a team to be reckoned with, because Walter is very explosive. And their receiving core, I don't think, they lost Austin Mack, who's a big loss. Charleston Rambo has stepped in, done a fantastic job, and they're featuring Philpott this year. Tyson Philpott. I think when I went to training camp, I went to watch them in training camp a couple of days, and it was obvious that he and Keon Julian Grant, two Canadians, were going to be featured a lot more, and they are so far this year. So they're a solid all-around team. Danny Machocha, again, he was on our staff back in '96. He would come at night and break our films down and things. But he's done a phenomenal job as a general manager in terms of putting that team together. And I think they're going to be the two best teams in the league right now. Might be in the East. I mean, it's it's hard to say that Winnipeg, you don't know what's going on there, and they've kind of lost their mojo, and can they get that back? It's that's tough to know. BC, I think they lost to Toronto, went home and won, but again, are they going to be? I don't think they've shown as well as the teams in the East, and they got beat. Like I said, they got beat by Toronto. So it's going to be a great season. I mean, it really is. I think you got teams on both sides, and Hamilton is 0-2, but Bo Levi is playing like Bo Levi back in '88, back in 2018. He's moving around better than he ever has. He's throwing the ball very well. He's got a grasp of what Scott wants him to do. Scott's doing things to keep him upright. And I think that team, if they can figure it out on defense, and that's their problem right now, is defense, is they have to figure that out. They have to find a way to stop people, because if that it's a long year if you don't do that. And then Ottawa, they come in and beat Winnipeg, who comes in and off of a loss. And I know a lot of people thought that was going to be a tough ball game for him, and it was. And is Drew Brown? What is he? He's he's one game in. Give me about three more games, and we'll know a lot more on Drew Brown. And if he can be that guy, they've got a real chance. Their receiving core solid. They got really strong play out of Zach Pelahos at right tackle, which they had to get. This new running back they have, Rock Armstead. They lost Devontae Williams. Man, Armstead is tough, physical inside, just what they need. They've always been good defensively against the run. They give up big plays. They got to get that secondary, and I think Baron Miles will get that secondary squared away where they're just not giving up as many big plays as they have. So the East is going to be fantastic. The West is going to be a great year in the CFL, Joe.
No doubt about that, Earl. And as you mentioned, Chad Kelly has something to prove. It'll be an interesting rematch in the Eastern Final, perhaps against Toronto and Montreal. And I agree with you. That could very well be for the Grey Cup. So, okay, a question we ask all our guests is, what's the best advice you've ever received?
The best advice I ever received, probably without question, it was do something you love doing. When I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, and this sports writer, Roger Murray, he told me, do something that you love doing. And then probably the second came from Don Matthews, and it's never take a job for money. And he said, always take the job that's best for you, that's the best situation, the best people. And I didn't always do that. I didn't take the Calgary job for money. I took it because I thought I was better than I am. And, you have to learn that stuff. I mean, you're a young coach, you got an ego, you have to learn those things. And I had to learn it the hard way. So those are probably the two most important things I learned is don't ever take a job for money. Take it because it's a great job, and do something you love doing. Make a living doing, what you love doing. My daughters, I got to tell you, they're 39 and 41, and they are living their best lives. They are absolutely love getting up and going to work. They love what they do. And they say now, they didn't when they were younger, but they say now they learned that from watching me, because they felt like I never really worked. I always felt like, work was what I loved doing. And if you can find that in life, it makes everything better.
Yeah, pretty awesome. Yeah, I love it. I think Wayne Dyer once heard Wayne Dyer said they say that if you have a passion and you follow your passion, you can make a living doing it. I remember hearing that Paul McCartney's aunt once said to him, "Paul, a guitar's a nice thing, but you're never going to make a living out of playing one."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
but that's my mom said the same thing to me, and I flew her up when I was named head coach of the Argos back in '99. I flew her up
yeah.
there for it so she could see, Mom, I can make a living doing this.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. She would never know you after that. Yeah. And then coach of the year too, which is pretty awesome. Uh, Listen, Jim, thank you so much for taking this time to join us, and good luck with the upcoming season. Have fun. And I know you will with that great group over there.
Truly enjoyed it, Joe.
Thank you, sir. All right.
All
More
right.
sports when we come back. Thank you.
Addiction Rehab Toronto, Toronto's #1 alcohol and drug treatment center, saving lives, reuniting families. The only treatment center in the province to offer medical detox, treatment, sober living, and lifetime aftercare all in one place. Our unique and specialized programs are designed to equip our clients with the tools to successfully lead a life of dignity, respect, and purpose. Let us help save your life or your loved one's life. Call today for more information or to facilitate an intervention. 1-855-787-2424 or visit addictionrehabtoronto.ca. Rely on Walton Restoration's 40-plus years of excellence in residential and commercial restoration. Their strong reputation is built on workmanship, professionalism, and outstanding customer service. Trust Walton as your dependable partner in emergencies, serving Durham, Kawartha, and Northumberland regions. Call 905-725-5666 or visit waltonrestoration.com. Experience top-tier workmanship and service. Walton Restoration, the trusted name in property restoration. Join satisfied customers like me.
And we want to thank all the folks who make this show possible. These are friends, trusted business associates, and all around great people. We highly recommend them all. Thank you for your support of Canadian and local sports. A reminder that the show is available on iTunes, Spotify, Breaker, Radio Public, Google Cast, Pocket Cast, as well as the Spanglish Network, Zingo TV, and Buzz TV Live. Also, check out the show on YouTube. All of our past great shows are on there. Shorts, reels, like and subscribe. It's absolutely positively free. Thank you once again to Jim Barker for being on the program. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Brian Gribben Insurance Planning, helping you solidify your financial future.
At BGIP, what we do that's unique in the marketplace is we show people how to spend and enjoy their money in the early years of retirement without the fear of running out. Also, we're able to do this without you having to change financial advisors. Please look us up at bgip.ca today. And let's book a 30-minute phone call to see how we can bring value to you and your family in your planning.
Call Brian today for all your retirement needs. We did. 905-686-5678.
MNP, a leading Canadian national accounting, tax, and business accounting firm. MNP proudly serves in response to the need of their clients in the private, public, and nonprofit sectors. Through partner-led engagements, MNP provides a collaborative, cost-effective approach to do business and personal strategies to help people and organizations to succeed across the country and around the world. With local offices in Oshawa, Mississauga, Burlington, and more, their team is here to support you. Visit mnp.ca today to learn more. Rooted in 60 years of tradition, Sleepy Hollow is a private golf club with a friendly community of members just minutes from Toronto. With mature trees and rolling fairways, Sleepy Hollow provides a challenging and enjoyable experience for passionate golfers. Enjoy great golf, amazing dining, and a picturesque patio second to none. Visit sleepyhollowcountryclub.com. Joe Tilley here. My wife Penny Claire and I recently took an amazing trip to Egypt and Jordan with Trip Oppo. And here are our top 10 must-dos. Last but not least, we relaxed at a luxury resort and took a dip in the famous Dead Sea. This beautiful resort was a perfect way to cap off our incredible adventure in Egypt and Jordan. After days of exploring ancient ruins and bustling markets, it was wonderful to just kick back, put on a little mud, and soak up the sun by the Dead Sea. Oh, I almost forgot to mention the amazing cuisine in Egypt and Jordan. Don't forget to try the delicious local food like mouth-watering Egyptian barbecue. And the best part is that our Trip Oppo tour includes almost all of the meals, so you can indulge in the local cuisine without worrying about opening your wallet. I would highly recommend that you book your next trip through Trip Oppo. Call them today. Guests on Joe Tilley Sports receive a gift certificate from Classica Imports. Top of the line imported men's clothing. Check out the Classica Essential Collection now. Go to shopclassica.com.